Alright, sorry, go back to this. So Encyclopedia of the Common Man, I think that's collecting a lot of the, I think that's collecting the pages, crafting on Franklin's inventions, see all the optional characters, okay. Win a game of Fan Arano, Morris, and Bowles on the Homestead, whatever the fuck that is. Explore Fort Walcott. Mystery of Oak Island. Complete naval missions. Complete all 12 privateer contracts. Upgrade the Aquila. Complete all challenges for any of the clubs. Liberate all districts. And a convoy to Boston, New York, and the frontier. Retrieve every page. Okay. Double assassination using musket. Okay. A lot of this stuff will be done. Change some damaged pellets at all different general stores. Tyranny of is TOKW the TOKW might I think TOKW is the Tyranny of Washington DLC. Okay, so nothing too crazy, at least on the surface. I know there's some issues with fucking dogs laying on there. I know there's some issues with some of the trophies glitching on the PS3 version. This is a remastered version, so I'm not sure if we still have those issues. It hasn't really been confirmed nor denied that there's still these issues. Okay, so I just gotta give. Okay. Let's go. I'm so used to. Oh, they just changed these freaking controls around. I don't even see this sheet of paper. I didn't actually collect that. I mean, there's no paper there. It's like glitched out. Unless I'm just blind as bat, which is possible. God, fuck. Alright, we'll see if that comes back. I don't think I collected it, but maybe I did. I mean, it kind of popped up like I collected it. Alright, let's go over here. God damn it. Let's do this. Go around and then maybe loop back around. Get some collectibles out of the way. Not exactly sure why this is.
The sea cannot be unloaded. To do so would be to bend our knee in obligation to a House of Commons that treats us. Therefore you bleed.
To all weavers, esteemed craftsman Peter Witzel has contracted a demonstration of his latest loom.
You seen the serpent? You bet your ours I seen the serpent. Thing was horrifying. Where was it? Just out past the breakwater. Came up to the surface to have a look, then plunged right back down again. The parts I saw was 30 feet. Who knows how much remained underwater?
Jack say there's an old man that's always around when the beast appears.
Jacks say a lot of things.
But this be one, I believe. They say he commands the thing.
Some old man ordering a cracking about? What a bunch of fluff.
Dunno, mate. A lot of men I trust spin the same yarn.
You hear the serpent weaver died?
The old thief's buried not far from here. Man was up alive. Good riddance. That old fellow people said called the Kraken bought the farm not long ago. Nobody's seen the beast since.
So it was true then.
Didn't say that. Maybe you could ask his widow. She won't leave his grave.
You come to pay your respects. You're the first. He didn't have many friends. He was a good trader, a good husband. I never wanted for anything.
There's supposed to be a chest around here somewhere. Maybe over here. Okay, well, there's supposed to be a chest there, but apparently it's nowhere to be found. Let's go up over yonder. We'll make our way back or down and around. That. I might have got that one. It still doesn't come back. Blowing in the Wind. Retrieve every page for one of Ben's almanacs.
Empty that purse.
God-forsaken dog!
Give me all your coin. You know how this works.
You bastard!
Pay up, before I sock you one.
It's not yours!
Piss off. You want to catch a beating? Get closer.
Keep moving, mate.
You won't catch him! Leave off him!
Okay, there's supposed to be another treasure right here, but of course there's not. What do you mean I failed?
Empty that purse.
God-forsaken dogs!
Give me all your
Piss off. You want to catch a beating? Get close. You won't catch him. Leave off him.
Gentlemen dilettantes, amateurs, and the curious public. Toby Locke will demonstrate tomorrow by the Belfry his latest flying
Okay, where are we going? start mission, but it doesn't actually tell me anything. Just have a couple. Alright, well, let's go up this way and do this one first, I guess.
The Reverend Julius Foster will be guest All citizens are urged by our honorable governor to maintain order and in no way interfere with the proper and orderly business of the North.
Got him. Alright, so we got one. I guess let's go over here and we'll do this. I know we're doing kind of a lot of Bourne-side stuff right now, but I just really don't want to leave all of the grinding till after the story. I mean, we're just gonna work our way down to the mission, cleaning stuff up as we go. And when we get to the mission, we'll start. See, this doesn't fucking tell me, like... Who do these go to? Okay, we got two down there. Or we got one down there, one down there. One all the way down there. Do I fucking do this liberation mission?
us what we want to know? Or you's comfortable in there? Haven't used...
AOB, what's that? Animus database. The American Sea Monster. Boone, I'm not one for sailing, but I know it's out there. Some call it a kraken, others just sea monster. They say it's 50 feet long. If it's an inch and it rolls ships for sport. You won't find me out in the high seas searching for the beast. That's a guarantee I can give you, but it's a riddle that needs solving. People across Boston spoke of seeing a monster. Reports varied in details, but most agreed that it was long and black and only appeared in the presence of an old man. Turns out the creature was the old man himself, diving in the water with a contraption that allowed him to breathe while submerged. The machine itself was as startling as any monster, but it poses no danger to ships. Let's look at people. Individuals. Benjamin Church. Born 1734, Benjamin Church was a talented physician and essentially the first Surgeon General of the U.S. Army. Church was born in Rhode Island and graduated from Harvard University in 1754, so you're meeting him here just out of college. He'll be appointed head of the medical wing of the Continental Army in 1775, but for God's sake, don't tell him. It'll go straight to his head. Church goes on to become a vocal patriot, which makes him sound like a member of a weird barbershop quartet. But he was member of the Sons of Liberty in his local committee of correspondence. He'll even speak at the 3rd anniversary of the Boston Massacre, which is the year we're in, I think. Are we in 73? I think we're still in 73. Because Boston Tea Party was in December of 73, so we haven't done that yet. He's also got a house in a very nice part of town. Being a doctor must pay well. Okay? Nicholas Biddle. Nicholas Biddle was an ambitious young sailor who became one of the first captains of the Continental Navy. Biddle joined the Royal Navy in 1770, I mean the British side. But when the American Revolution started, he offered his services to the Continental Congress. So a traitor. Then, though it's funny how you lot don't generally see it that way. Anyway, while he was only a midshipman for the British Congress quickly gave him command of his own ship, the Franklin. In 1776 was offered an even better deal. Command of a brand new ship named the Randolph. History is mute on the reasons behind Biddle's rise to prominence. However, I think I might be able to solve the mystery. We saw a Church recruiting him with Connor when Connor stopped at Nantucket. Biddle eventually became a privateer for the Continental Congress, patrolling British shipping routes, harassing their ships, and keeping the spoils from any he could capture. He had a reputation as an excellent captain. He divided the spoils evenly and never used corporal punishment against his crew. What a softy. Pitiful, really. Though I think you can see why that job would be a perk. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was a renowned inventor, diplomat, and one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. Translation, he was a rock star of the age. Benjamin Franklin was born in Boston in 1706, the 10th son of a soapmaker. 10 sons. I guess his parents couldn't afford a television, and also there was no television. He began work for his brother in 1718 as an apprentice printer. However, their relationship was rocky, particularly after the elder Franklin found out that young Benjamin had been writing for the paper under a pseudonym, Silence Dogood, and writing an extremely popular column at that. Human nature being what it is, the fact that the column was popular was probably the bigger problem. Benjamin ran away in 1723 and headed for Philadelphia, where he continued his career in printing and writing, eventually buying the Pennsylvania Gazette, the business, not just a copy, that would have been one of the lesser achievements. He stayed in Philadelphia for most of his life. That is, when he wasn't making extended trips to Europe. Franklin had a talent for persuasion, and that made him an ideal diplomat. In 1757, he went to London to represent Pennsylvania in an ongoing legal battle with the Penn family. It was the first of several extended political trips to Britain, and he would act as a state representative for Massachusetts, Georgia, and New Jersey as well. In fact, Franklin was in Europe for most of the Revolution, though he was in the colonies to help with the writing of the Declaration of Independence. Franklin was a vocal opponent of British impositions on the colonies like the Stamp Act, and although he first fought for the rights of the colonists as British citizens, he eventually became convinced, like many of the founding fathers, that independence was the only real solution. Unfortunately, Franklin's change of heart made him clash with his son William, who served as the royal governor of New Jersey. William remained an active loyalist. The father and son never spoke again. When he wasn't founding a new nation and destroying his family in the process, Franklin was a scientist, inventing things like bifocals and more efficient wood stoves, and when he wasn't mapping the Gulf Stream and discovering how electricity worked. What have you done today? Make yourself a microwave meal and sat about in your underwear. Oh, well done, you. He was also quite the lady killer. Jesus, this guy carrying on several friendships with women while he was in Europe. The records don't say what exactly they saw in him, certainly not his looks, maybe women like a man whose intelligence. If that was true, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in Portugal surrounded by them, and you'd be looking at a blank screen. Oh, Sean. John Pitcairn. We're going to go through these real quick. In 1754, John Pitcairn was a young captain in the British Marine Corps. He fought the French and Indian War, and I can't find much about his postings. He's listed as being on the HMC Lancaster during the capture of Louisbourg. That's in Canada. No record of him being on the American side of the colonies, but it seems he did some covert work as well. That would explain the lack of details. Pitcairn was promoted to major in 71, and he gained a reputation for being well-liked by his subordinates and praised by his enemies. That's a difficult trick to pull off. Maybe he had a lovely smile. Thomas Hickey. Thomas Hickey was an Irish-born member of the British Army. He arrived in Boston. If anyone doesn't really know the true history of Thomas Hickey, it's actually pretty crazy. Thomas Hickey was an Irish-born. Let's see if they go through it here. He was an Irish-born member of the British Army. He arrived in Boston in 1752, but it wasn't long before he was assigned to William Johnson's personal guard. Apparently at Johnson's request, possibly because their families were connected in Ireland. Or maybe he found the name Hickey funny. The record isn't clear. Hickey served under Johnson during the French and Indian War, but then he left the army after being written up several times for disorderly conduct after 1760. Wait, when was he born? I thought he arrived in Boston in 1750. Okay. After 1760, Hickey disappears from the historical record for several years that do, however, have several mentions of William Johnson's household accounts of payments made to T.H. It's possible Hickey was working for him as a spy. If so, he should really have developed some tougher codes to crack. I know they kind of work in his history into this game, but I'll have to get to that point, but I don't think it covers exactly what that guy did. It's pretty crazy. Samuel Adams was a Boston lawyer, a signatory of the Declaration of Independence, and a prominent political figure during the lead up to the American Revolution. I think that puts your little life into perspective, hasn't it? Adams was born in Massachusetts, son of another Samuel Adams, who was a well-off merchant. Adams, the youngest one, went to Harvard, graduated in 1740. He went in business for himself, but was a dismal failure and ended up taking up a job at a family brewery. A lot of men turn to breweries when their businesses fail, but in a rather different way, and that was fortunate for his legacy, since his relationship to beer may be the only reason most Americans have ever heard of him. Adams was elected to Massachusetts legislature in 1765, which was the beginning of his political career. He was a staunch supporter of the colonists' rights, mainly the ever-popular arguments over whether British Parliament had a right to impose taxes, but wasn't pro-independence, at least on the first. I think it's fair to say he changed his mind later. Adams is often portrayed as an angry radical, but that's a bit of a biased picture. Adams disliked vigilantism for the most part, though he approved when a mob forced Boston stamp collector to resign, so perhaps he only disliked some vigilantism. In later years, when Adams was in Congress, he refused even to join a political party because he found the idea divisive, a sentiment which he shared with George Washington, incidentally. However, Adams' reputation for being a rabble-rouser is somewhat understandable. He was representative for the town of Boston after the Boston Massacre and succeeded in having the regulars kicked out of town. He spoke at the Old South Meeting Hall just prior to the Boston Tea Party and said he gave the signal for the dumping of the tea. Though there's some debate over whether he was involved, which I'm happy about, as a gentleman does not waste tea. Adams was infamous enough that he had to leave Boston for Lexington in 1775 to avoid arrest by the British, who considered him a troublemaker. When the siege of Boston began, the Massachusetts governor offered to pardon any rebels who would lay down their arms, except Adams and John Hancock. Overall, Adams certainly was a thorn in the side of the British, though what puzzles me is why some Americans think being an angry revolutionary was a bad thing. If you got where you are today, didn't it? Actually, hang about, yes. Maybe I see their point after all. Okay, we're not going to do all of these. That's a lot. Let's see what this has to say about Ezio Auditore. Ezio Auditore da Firenze was a master assassin during the Italian Renaissance, as well as being an inheritor of the mysterious ability of the eagle vision and one of your ancestors. Ezio was something of a playboy in his teenage years, but his life changed in 1476 when his father and brothers were arrested and executed for treason. Ezio tried to save them, but the evidence clearing their names mysteriously disappeared in the hands of a family friend. Instead, they were hanged as Ezio looked on. Ezio fled with his mother and sister to Monteriggioni, where he sought refuge with his uncle, Mario Auditore. While Ezio was originally intended to continue on and settle in Spain, Mario had other ideas. He was leader of the Italian Assassin Brotherhood and spent the next several years training Ezio and convincing him to help fight the Templars responsible for the deaths of his fathers and brothers. Ezio spent the next decade assassinating his way through the Templar ranks, eventually cornering the Templar Grand Master Rodrigo Borgia. And then in 1487, Borgia got away, but Ezio was able to recover Napoli of Eden and was formally inducted into the Assassin Order. After several setbacks over the next few years, Ezio traveled to Rome in 1499 to confront Rodrigo, who by then had become Pope Alexander VI. After defeating Rodrigo but sparing his life, Ezio opened a hidden vault under the Sistine Chapel. There he discovered a message left by the first civilization warning of a catastrophe that would threaten to wipe out humanity. Yes, that would be the one we're facing now. Over the next 20 or so years, Ezio worked at strengthening the Italian Assassin Brotherhood and fighting the Templars, which is sort of what we do. One of his greatest accomplishments would be discovering a hidden library belonging to Altair, hidden under the former assassin stronghold at Masyaf, and containing another message from the first civilization. He retired from the Brotherhood shortly thereafter, which is what we call ending on a high note. He was terrific at jumping too. Ezio died in Florence in 1524. Let's look at Achilles. You may not think to look at him how, but this man was once the mentor of a powerful branch of the Assassins, the Colonial Brotherhood. Achilles' life before he was an assassin isn't well documented. It seems that most of the records were destroyed when the Templars nearly wiped out the order in 1763. From what I do have, Achilles was recruited in the mid-1730s and became a mentor in 1746. He had a gift for both recruitment and organization, so before long was head of a crew of assassins that spanned the colonies and much of the frontier. Achilles strengthened the ties between the Order and the nations of the Iroquois Confederacy, particularly that word, though as far as our records show, Connor is the first Native American to actually become an assassin. Ethan Kenway. Ethan Kenway is a Templar who came to the American colonies in 1754. From what we've learned, Kenway was sent here by Grand Master Reginald Birch with a dual mission: establish his own Templar group to rival colonial assassins and search for clues about artifacts related to the first civilization. When a Grand Master tells you to do something, you do it, even if it's just a chess Grand Master. Kenway didn't find the artifacts he was looking for. He did, however, recruit a small, dedicated band of Templars. He also attempted to forge a relationship with Indians in the frontier, and one woman in particular, Connor's mom. The two were briefly lovers, and however brief it was enough because Connor's mom, unbeknownst to Haytham, ended up raising their son Connor. I'm guessing it was Kenway. He became Grand Master in the colonies, and therefore the man responsible for the 1763 attack on the colonial assassins. That attack wiped out most of the membership and almost all of our records from that era. It's never been clear exactly what happened in the attack or how Kenway managed to make it such a complete surprise. In any case, I don't like this guy. Sorry to use such strong words. Charles Lee. Charles Lee was a British soldier who went on to be a major figure in the Revolutionary War. Lee's father was a colonel in the British Army and started his son off in a military career early. He was sent to the military academy in Switzerland during his formative years, and then in 1746 Lee became an ensign in his father's regiment. Lee was sent to the colonies in 1755 to fight the French and Indian War. He served under Edward Braddock, then later at Fort Ticonderoga, where he was injured in the fighting. Lee recovered and later fought at Fort Niagara. I'd always thought there were a lot of fort fights fought. He finished his time in the colonies with the British conquest of Montreal. Lee returned to England in 1760, possibly because he was seeking career advancement. He was named a major in 1761 and was sent to fight the Spanish in Portugal. Though his service record there was good, Lee didn't receive praise on his return home. In fact, he was retired from the army at half pay. After that, Lee became a vocal critic of military higher-ups and British Prime Minister, and found that his military career has inexplicably completely stalled. Frustrated with the lack of advancement with the British, Lee moved back to New York in 1773. He quickly became a supporter of the revolutionary cause, and in June of 1775 he joined the Continental Army with the rank of Major General. Lee began his service under the command of George Washington, which grated. Since Lee had some hopes of being named Commander-in-Chief of the Army himself, given Lee's experience, he might have had a point, but he also had drawbacks. Most notable was his temper. Lee was quick to anger and had a habit of becoming very vocally and publicly angry when he didn't get his way. The bosses love that. Lee also had some rather odd personal quirks. He was exceptionally fond of dogs and was continually surrounded by them, in particular his much-loved Pomeranian. Never trust a man continually surrounded by dogs. He was also vain and liked tailored suits and rarely washed them, meaning that he smelled little better than his animals, and worse, according to some. Despite his failings, Lee was both a competent leader and popular with the troops. Washington recognized it and named one of the forts on the Hudson River Fort Lee in his honor. Washington was hoping that just naming a fort after him would smooth over the rocky relationship, but amazingly didn't work. In fact, as time went on, Lee became less and less fond of Washington and became reluctant to follow orders at all. When Washington retreated across New York and New Jersey in 1776, sent several commands to Lee to follow him, which Lee did, but very slowly, which may be what resulted in him being left behind and captured by the British in 1776. Still, it's understandable he probably had to stop every 5 minutes to let his bloody dogs piss in a hedge. Fortunately for Lee, he resigned his commission in the British Army shortly after taking his role in the Continental Army. That meant instead of being tried for being a deserter, his imprisonment in New York was more of an inconvenience. He was wined and dined by the British, allowed to have whomever he wanted as a dinner guest. It was basically bed and breakfast. In return, Lee gave up information to the Continental Army. Alright, that's enough of these readings for now. Actually, I want to do one more. I want to see what they say about Daniel Boone. Daniel Boone was a hunter and trapper who, through skill and luck, went on to become a near-mythic figure in stories about the American frontier. Boone was born in Pennsylvania and moved with his family to North Carolina in 1752. He traveled to the frontier frequently on hunting and trapping expeditions across modern-day North Carolina, Florida, and into Kentucky. The list goes on, but I'll stop it there because it's just a list of places and that can be quite tedious. Boone is sometimes credited with discovering Kentucky, which is ridiculous, as I'm fairly sure someone else must have seen it once. But he did have a major role in colonization by Europeans. In 1973, Boone headed for the interior of Kentucky with a group of settlers with the intent of starting a town. Now the Kentucky interior and technically had been called the British after the Treaty of Stanwix. Residents agreed with the treaty, or the incursion onto their traditional lands. Boone's group hadn't gone far when the party was attacked. Boone's son was captured and tortured to death, and the colonists left. However, Boone went back in 1975, and he was hired by the Transylvania Company to blaze a trail to the interior known as the Wilderness Trail. Boone settled in an area, founding the town of Boonesboro, Arrogant, which he later helped save from the Revolution. Boone was made famous in his later years, not so much by his adventures, though, which he had many, I'm sure he'll tell you about, but by books written about his life, some of which contained, let's just call them historical inaccuracies. The one where he wrestled a 60-foot man-fish springs to mind. In reality, Boone wasn't one to embellish his experience, which may be why people felt the need to do it for him. Okay, cool. Alright, that's enough for now. Let's get back to what we're doing. Alright, we're gonna do this, 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 and that. Okay, so we got a list of things we want to do. And we're slowly making our way to our mission. And while we're just running across here, there's nothing much to do. I did look at the times to platinum some of these games, and I think Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla alone would take roughly 350 to 400 hours to platinum all three of those. So I have made the decision that I will not be playing Liberation. I will not be playing Freedom Cry. I still have never played those games. I've never really had much of a desire to play those games, but
This murdering ruffian will...
but yeah, I was thinking that this would be the perfect time to do it, but I know it doesn't really advance the story, the overall story all that much, or I shouldn't say I know that. From my understanding, it doesn't. And I just heard, which one? Liberation. It's got some interesting mechanics, but the execution's not very good with like the disguises. And then Freedom Cry, I heard Freedom Cry is actually pretty good, but like I said, I know it doesn't really progress the story, so we probably won't put too much effort into it.
go now.
Keep your...
You did not consent to this. Go home.
You're a great man.
For the best rates in transatlantic shipping, contact Wells Brokers. Let us worry about the details while you...
Yeah, we'll worry about that later. Let's see if we can get this. Okay, got that.
So long ago massacred our own citizens in these very streets.
Snatcher shatters.